Hi, I'm Mark Hindle. In my day job I work in the technology-enabled care sector. And this is Home Truths, where we try and share interesting conversations from people in, around and affected by care and the care sector.
I'm Nerys Hebdon, work alongside Mark in the sector. And today we're going to talk about unpaid carers or family carers, those people who are thrust into caring through no choice of their own. There's between 6 and 10 million of them in the UK, and I think the big difference, the gap in that number is a lot of them don't self-identify as unpaid carers, but together they make up the economic value of a second NHS, which is just incredible. So we're really lucky to be joined by a family carer, unpaid carer today, Janet, who's also my mum, and we're going to talk about the experience with my dad and with Alzheimer's. So thank you.
You're
for joining
welcome. us. Yes, I'm Janet, and I cared for my husband Keith for 3.5 years, and then he was in a nursing home for 17 months. I knew nothing about Alzheimer's, absolutely nothing at all. The impact on my life was life-changing. But to start on a positive note, there were positives. I had a very supportive family. The general public were outstanding. Whenever, I'll call it, got in a pickle in public, there was always somebody there to help. And the Admiral nurses, I'm going to give them a shout out. They were on the phone and on FaceTime videos anytime. I was a frequent caller and they were fabulous. It was an experience obviously nobody wants, but at the beginning you don't know what it's going to be like. You have no idea. Each stage needs something else from you, and it sort of gallops along, and then it plateaus, and then you suddenly find you've got another dip in it. We didn't have much technology at home. We tried with a tracker watch for Keith, but he had a watch of his own and he just ripped the other one off. Didn't matter what we did, he wouldn't wear another watch. He had a few experiences when he left home and got lost and police were involved, which was worrying. We tried something in his shoe, which didn't work either because he took that out. So that was the limit of our technology until we got an alarm from Amazon, I think it was, which worked very well in the night, because I knew when he had got up and was on the prowl, which often happened. The 3.5 years when he was at home coincided with COVID, which I've always said was not a winning combination. I remember one time I leaned against the wall one night and shouted out, "I cannot do this another day."
Yeah.
Janet.
It's okay. It's all right. It was tough, right? But I can hear the little sound of the owl. So we did get it off Amazon, and my husband wonderfully put a piece of wood together so that it kind of worked. And this is the thing, you kind of stumbling through this, right? Trying to make
problem
technology
that,
that works. So what it did, because for a lot of the time, if Dad was sat in his chair or asleep, which he was, it was okay, and it let you leave the room, right? I mean, it's as basic as that. And so as long as he was in the chair and he was okay, you could go upstairs and do some sewing or something like that. And then it used to go, hoo-hoo, and you'd know, I can hear it now, honestly. And then the same in the night, so if you came to stay or something, you would bring it with you.
It went everywhere, yes.
Yeah, and so then because day turns to night with Alzheimer's, there's so many things that nobody tells you about. I think that's the thing, right?
Yes.
Can we talk about the beginning of it? So, I mean, you guys you've had such an immersed experience into this world. When the very beginning, when you first noticing something was wrong with Dad? Or
2016, we went to New Zealand, having agreed what we would do there and everything. And we had a discussion before we went, and I made a list of where we'd go. We went across, met up with our family. We were ready to go to the South Island in a camper van. And he just said, "We can't afford to go. The camper van's too heavy. It'll sink the ferry." All these things. And I thought, what is this about? What is this about? In the end, I tore up the list and we stayed in the North Island. And then it didn't bother me for about another 18 months. And we went on the Caledonian Canal on a a small boat up the Caledonia Canal. I mean, the weather was appalling. It was relentless rain in Scotland. Now, he was a master mariner and had been at sea for 34 years driving super tankers. Okay, we've now got this cabin cruiser that is no distance at all from the front to the back. And he couldn't manage it. He kept saying, I need radar and I need this and I need that. He couldn't berth it. Couldn't make sense. He kept saying, can you take the wheel? And I sort of laughed at him. I said, Keith, we're not even going to sea. It's a canal. We can see both sides. What is wrong? And the really scary bit was we decided to call a halt on the holiday a day early because it was raining really. And we called ahead and we said, we're coming in to berth it and we'll be fine. He'd already spoken to the people who were hiring it out. And he said, no, I'm fine. I'll be fine. I've got quite a lot of credentials at sea. And he couldn't do it. He couldn't berth this tiny cabin cruiser. So we had to call somebody out. And then that was 17. And then after that, driving was worrying. And all the family just started saying the same things. So we had a summit meeting, didn't we, at Easter, and he agreed to go to the GP, didn't he? Do you remember? Only if I would go with him.
So I remember
And then off we go, yes.
I remember the holiday in Scotland. So I had a 3-month-old baby at the time and was going to a wedding in Scotland, and we managed to coincide the two things so that you looked after Hope for a little bit. And I remember you were pulling your hair out because it wasn't the holiday of dreams, but it also didn't make sense. Right? And it was like the park in the car. So this is for people who don't know, really common problem with Alzheimer's is you can't get a car into the white lines in the car park. It's that sort of sequencing, isn't it? Things like that. So there was lots of little things. I remember. So you go walking on a Thursday with a group, and so the deal was on a Thursday, Dad used to make dinner for you, didn't you? And he couldn't do it anymore. It's that sequencing that sort of goes. So you would be frustrated. So initially you're actually frustrated and, honestly a little bit unhappy about that at the end of the day.
The conversations between, so in that early phase, I think so many people will identify with that. It's that kind of, you're talking to Nerys and saying something's not right with your dad, and you're noticing bits and pieces. The kind of early stages of support between yourselves as you're trying to lurch towards a resolution. That must be so difficult to navigate just out of the blue as a family. I mean, fortunately you've got a supportive family around.
Yes, very, yes. But how do people manage on their own? I mean, I used to stop him driving if I possibly could. He was still legally able to drive. Let me point that out. Yeah. He hadn't had the diagnosis, and he could still drive. Just muscle memory, but coming into junctions, he used to say, well, I've no idea where I'm going. Can you tell me where I'm going? And I used to be sitting there with literally white knuckles. He said to me once, what's wrong with your hands? And I thought, you've no idea. So I used to hide car keys. I used to get in the car first, sit in the driving seat, all these things just to stop him driving. And the day he got his license taken away was horrendous for him, but the relief for me was enormous because I never let him go out on his own. So how people on their own survive these
they end up in crisis, don't they?
Yes, exactly. Yes, we know. Yes.
I remember him saying to Jane when they were walking up over the tops, and he was pointing down to a village, and he said, I know what the name of it is, but I can't place it. And that was really early, and I think he never knew he had Alzheimer's, right? Nope. By the time that we knew he had Alzheimer's, he definitely didn't know he had Alzheimer's, which I think was a kindness. But you don't know, something's not right. And there's funny things, right? So my dad's always had a sweet. I remember he used to go and buy, when you're out on a Thursday, he would always eat chips and ice cream and whatever, right? And he'd gone and bought a packet of, I don't know, 8 buns or something like that. And he ate them all because he didn't remember the first one, so he had the second one. And so when you came home and said, what's for dinner? And he said, well, I'm not hungry. And then you found the packet. I mean, and it's just out of not remembering, right? That short-term memory just goes, right? Completely goes.
No, there were some funny moments. Do you want to hear the guinea pig story? When he was in the care home, they had 3 guinea pigs, and I used to take young children, Nerys's young children, 5 and 9. We used to get the guinea pigs out and play with them for about half an hour, stroke them, and then in the car on the way home, the younger one was 5, and she said, "Do you know what, Grandma?" She said, "The guinea pigs were more fun than Grandad today." And so she knew he had something with his brain and all the rest of it. So we went over all that again, and then she said, "Do guinea pigs get Alzheimer's?" It still makes me laugh now, and I think, well, do you know what? I've got enough on with your Grandad. We'll never mind about the guinea pigs.
So you go through that early stage as a family and you get to a diagnosis.
Yeah.
What happens next then? Does the support cavalry then come around you, or is it?
You're
Yes.
looking at the support cavalry.
Yeah. Yes, we got diagnosed in November and we got signed off just 2 or 3 months later in January at a consultant psychiatrist. And I remember him saying to me then, he said, "You've got 2 usable years," so that would have been 2019 and 2020, "and you will get nothing back." And I thought, what's he talking about? And now with hindsight, you get nothing. You get nothing. It's just downhill all the way, and it sucks the life out of you. It really does. And I kept a blog, and just really to look back and see how quickly we were losing everything. Can use cutlery 1 week, 2 weeks later, we're eating with fingers and things get a bit messy. And it's a very quick progression. They say about 5 years, and it was 5 years and a month. So they were spot on with that.
It's the opposite of, and the parallel was that, Hope was a baby when she
Yes.
around about the diagnosis.
Yeah.
And, there was, whereas she was progressing and progressing.
Yes.
And we were, well done. It was the complete opposite. I remember being in the swimming pool. There was a lot of things that he could do with muscle memory. But I remember, when you have children and you make them swim to grandma kind of thing like that. And I did it, and he just didn't go to get her, which is, get her. But, you sort of think, wow, that's gone, right? That real basic. But, other things, I used to pass him a toothbrush, and this, give Hope an honorary toothbrush, and then, and think, there you go, Dad, do your teeth. And then he would,
Yes.
but he would never have done his teeth otherwise,
Yeah.
But that sort of made it okay for me, because it's, it's an awkward transition as a daughter that you're
yes.
doing that, to sort of do those prompts.
Janet, after how many years of marriage?
For 54.
Wow, and I just can't even comprehend the kind of feeling of this person that you know intimately.
Well, you lose them; they disappear. They just, we always said Alzheimer's was a thief. Just stole him, didn't they?
Yeah.
And in terms of the support then that's out there for the family at that time, you bought technology on Amazon, you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that I think a lot of people think about. There should be something out there that's a comprehensive guide to navigate what is such an incredibly difficult time. But
The occupational therapist, I had one of those, and I think I had a social worker. The difference is I always found nobody asked how he was, because you were never going to say, "Oh, that treatment's worked," or anything else. Is a cancer patient has treatment, and you ask about it. Nobody asked, because there's no cure, no escape. It's just downhill, and I found that a bit odd, really.
It's a bit isolating.
It
I
is
think.
very
I think people
isolating.
don't talk about it. I think it's, I guess to protect people's dignity. There's probably things that you won't want to talk about, and
Yes.
but nobody wants to hear it as well,
No.
right? It's frightening, really.
People used to say, if he wasn't with me, people used to say, "Oh, where's Keith?" And I used to say he was in respite. That was easier than saying he was in full-time care. That was much easier. He's just having 2 or 3 days respite. So
Yeah, and it's just
that
such
was
an
easier.
emotional. But the whole thing is just an emotional roller coaster, and you have no time.
to even assess it, and even the 17 months he was in the nursing home, you're still fighting his corner in there. They were fabulous and all the rest of it, but you're giving your bone china to somebody, really, and they've got lots of these people, that are bit bone china to their families. So you do have to fight their corner as well, and rightly so, because he couldn't fight his corner, certainly couldn't.
But they got to know him, and especially how he was at the time. Those last 15 months or whatever that he was in, they could tell if he was uncomfortable and things from, and just incredible kindnesses. There was one moment that really stuck with me, and it was in the last few days actually. So I'd gone to his room in the care home, and I could hear somebody talking, and I thought, well, I don't know who they're talking to because Dad hadn't spoken for months, right? So so I came in, and I can't remember her name, but she was just holding his hand and talking to him, and she had finished her shift.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was wonderful, that dignity and kindness that she was showing him, and I sort of, I made her jump a little bit, and I said, no, please, please keep going. And I just thought, what can we do to help these people? I'm going to make you go. What can we, because we don't want those people spending their time writing up notes and testing alarms and things like that. That you couldn't want anything more for your loved one than that kindness and understanding that she showed him.
Yes, and some of them were only young, weren't they, in their early 20s, and they were fabulous. Yeah, really good.
Janet, would you describe yourself as an unpaid carer when I mean, looking back, it's probably easy now, right? But
I don't know. You just do it because there isn't any choice. You have absolutely no choice unless you embrace the care system and care home straight away. But as we were self-funding, it was the cost of £100,000 just for the 17 months.
Wow.
He was just unlucky. He had nothing else wrong with him, so that was it.
Do you remember there was assessments after assessments after assessments, but there was one where we were sat either side of his bed, and it was in that last week, and they'd called through and to pass on the news of this assessment, or
that's right. Yes.
And I said, just out of interest, because it was then, he was recognised it was end of life, and so something else kicked in, and I said, just out of interest, did he qualify? At this point, he literally couldn't do anything. Couldn't do anything.
And they said, how much worse do you have to get? Yes.
No, he didn't meet the threshold. And I said, okay,
Stop.
Thank you for letting me know. And we sort of almost laughed about it, actually, and it's a lottery in that, he never had anything wrong with him. He never needed paracetamol.
I think in his 77 years, he had 2 nights in hospital. That's all he ever had. There was nothing wrong with him, was there? But there we go. That's another discussion, isn't it? But yes, another impact, certainly.
And you must have met some incredible individuals along the way, some of the carers that came to help.
The general public were amazing. I broke my arm at one point in the middle of COVID, just at, and just being awake at 3 in the night thinking, how am I going to manage this one handed? But I did. People just intervened, because then we had to use buses, and he wouldn't get on them and he wouldn't get off them. And we once got off because he wouldn't stay on the bus. Fairly rural area, and I had to wait half an hour for the next one. Busy road, bus stops on each side, and he just wanted to keep crossing the road. They have this phase when they just want to keep moving and roaming, no pavements. And there was one man standing at the bus stop, and we were backwards and forwards, and I kept thinking, what am I going to, how can I handle this? There were allotments, but he wasn't interested in those. So I was sort of wrestling with him. That sounds, he wasn't aggressive in any way, but I had to keep him safe. And I couldn't think straight. And this man just said to me, he said, do you know what? He said, I'm really worried about you. My bus is coming any minute. He was going the other way. He said, and I don't want to leave you. I think you're both in danger. He said, don't you know anybody that can come and pick you up? And I thought, what a good idea.
Yeah.
Now, he wasn't keen on getting in cars generally, but he knew this white car was a friend, and this friend came across. And on the way home, I thought, why didn't I think of that? This is a total stranger telling me, problem solving.
Yeah.
And that was fantastic. And another lady helped was when I broke my arm, I ended up at A&E. Keith was in a daycare that day, and I was out walking. 5 o'clock, went to the local hospital with a friend. We looked in the car park, no cars. I thought, fab, I'll be in straight away. Went in, said I've broken my arm, and she took the details, and she said, I've made an appointment for you to come back at 9:30 tonight. I thought, well, I can't.
Can't do that.
I can't.
Yeah.
I can't drive a car. So I burst into tears, which wasn't surprising. And my little friend next to me leaned in and she said, "This lady's husband's got advanced Alzheimer's." And the admin secretary, she just leaned forward and she said, "We were number 34 in the queue, you're now number 1." You know, victory, fantastic. You know, if that had been another person, I wouldn't have got round that. But so I got seen, I was home that night with the pot on. But that, it's when I say the general public, they were marvellous. I think they recognised the need.
Yeah.
Open car doors for me when I tried to put him in, and that's another problem. He sat in the front seat. He wanted to keep opening the door. You can't put child locks on a front door of a car. It was a small car. He was a big bloke. Couldn't get him in the back. Yeah. All these things. So I had
never think of these things, would you?
Tied across from the passenger seat every time and then tied it round my door. Because how can I deal with an opening door?
Yeah.
But we just had to squeeze him in the back in the end, didn't we? It wasn't, he stopped going in the car, but he wouldn't get in taxis or on buses.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just problem solving daily, but it wasn't all gloomy.
As a family, then going through that part of the journey, I mean, it must be so difficult to see both your parent and your dad's condition, and then also wanted to do everything you can to support mum at that time.
I did. Yeah, I had a very fortunate 3 daughters and two sons-in-law who were both all were fabulous. Yeah. Yes, the night I broke my arm, I think the next day I got a pack of, I think it was 4 pairs of shorts with elastic waist, because it was your sister, wasn't it? She worked out that I wouldn't be able to do zips and buttons, and then somebody else came with chopped up vegetables and grated cheese and all these things, because I couldn't drive for 8 weeks, and so you just have to think on your feet. I'm just ordinary. Nothing. I had no training, but that's what you have to do, because you look behind you and there's nobody coming to do it for you.
And we used to try and give you a break, didn't we? We used to come and, you'd go away for a couple of days or something. But I remember thinking I've been off a bit more than I could chew, because I had young children at the same time as well. And when you weren't there, you were his absolute everything.
Yeah.
All he ever said was, "Where's your mum?" And that's okay the first, 40 times. But it's really difficult, and I take my hats off to people who work in the in telecare settings. I've sat in call centres and heard that, and they can do that for 12 hours, but it's challenging, isn't it?
I know,
there's only so many ways that you can say, "Where's your mum?"
So we've got some reflection to share. We know how to use a rope to secure a car door now, might help somewhere in a similar situation.
Yeah.
But what practical kind of families every day up and down the country will be having similar experiences? You've had some time as a family to process your experiences. What thoughts would you share with people that have...
Well, any respite you can give a carer is just like a gold bar. I mean, I did used to get out a lot of Thursdays because you had daycare, but this was close to COVID, and often I would go there on the Thursday morning and there was a sign up, "He can't come in because of COVID." But that worked very well, a daycare. That much better than having carers in my house. That didn't work very well at all.
And back to the day job, Nerys, for a second, in the technology world you work in. What do you think about, what did you kind of take away into your professional life in terms of just how, what could the sector do differently in that circumstance?
I think just, recognising that where somebody doesn't have capacity, you need different solutions, so, pressing a button wouldn't have worked for my dad at all, but the little motion sensor when he went up on it, that worked a treat. And, it's these personalising, I guess, the solution for that time that, that worked really, really well. So, yeah, at the heart, he didn't want to wear the watch because he had a watch. So he just used to take that off. And of course he did, right? We have to expect that. So it's so not one size fits all, but with a bit of creativity, I think, there's a lot we can do. I wish that, I knew now then and had the, access to the technologies and things. I think, we could have done more. I think we probably, could have done, but you don't know at the time, like you just...
And Alzheimer's is different in everybody. It's a personal a personal thing. It was very quick with your dad, wasn't it? Other people last years and years and don't lose their speech and everything. But
Yeah.
yes, it presents in a different way, doesn't
And what
it?
you're ready for as well, you know, because you were at capacity. So, you know, the idea of technology frightens you at the best of times, let's be honest. But yeah, I think, you know, helping. So we made that part easy for you, and
Yes.
that made it work, right? I think
Yes.
that's really key. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you so much for sharing your
You're
story with
welcome.
us. I think anything we can do to highlight the experiences of people with real world examples of just care, but I think the thing that I've taken from this is the family connection, the importance of the family support unit and navigating it together, right? Because no one can prepare for what you went through after. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you.
It's an absolute privilege to hear stories like Janet and Nerys have shared today. So I just want to thank both of them for their time and their story and for sharing it with all of us. Anything we can do to highlight those experiences is going to help somebody out there. So thank you.
Yeah, I definitely, you know, it's actually nice to be able to talk about it, and if that helps somebody in a tiny little way, or just helps them identify with what we went through, then I think that's helpful, right?
Right, yes, I hope I've helped.
Thank you.
So reflecting on that conversation with your mum, with Janet, what was the home truth we take away from that?
I think, you know, when families are plunged into this situation, you know, technology is a huge help. They'll take any help that they can get, right? And technology is just one of those things. But, you know, just helping them navigate that is really important. And it makes such a small thing can make such a big difference.
Agreed.